The moment the Flamingo missile slammed into the Russian port, everything shifted. A wall of fire rose from the coastline, and a dark plume spiraled into the sky. The shockwave didn't just hit steel and concrete. It hit the narrative Moscow had carefully built for years. Because when the strike happened, the man who claimed to command the Russian state was nowhere near the Kremlin. He wasn't even close. Vladimir Putin was hidden deep in a fortified forest compound, inside a cloned office meant to mimic the one Russians believe he uses just outside Moscow. The strike highlighted inconsistencies in the Kremlin's narrative. But to understand how this point was reached, we have to rewind. From the war's early months, the Kremlin pushed a simple storyline. Putin was in Moscow. He was always in the capital, working without pause, meeting officials, reviewing military plans, and threatening nuclear retaliation. Everything released by Russian state media carried a specific location tag, the presidential residence. This site, Novo Ogaryovo, lies approximately 15 miles from central Moscow, and has been presented as the official workspace for more than 2 decades. It symbolizes stability. It reinforces the idea of a leader guiding the nation from its political core. And it portrays Putin as fearless, present, unshaken by war. That illusion only works if the Moscow room stays identical every time the public sees it. Investigators and archivists catalogued inconsistencies across broadcasts. In one comparison, the Kremlin released 2 images supposedly captured on the same day in the same room. In one version, a door handle that had always appeared above a visible panel line suddenly appeared below it. In another, the wall texture behind Putin differed from earlier footage. Light fixtures were subtly off. Even the angle of the paneling shifted, while the camera angle remained constant. These details are more consistent with multiple sets than with routine renovations. And the more analysts compared recordings, the clearer the pattern became. Multiple versions of the same office existed across the country. Those anomalies aligned with earlier reports of 3 near-identical offices built for Putin. One in Moscow, one in Sochi, and one in Valdai, deep inside a forest halfway between Moscow and St. Petersburg. All 3 were constructed to look alike, down to the arrangement of furniture, the placement of doors, and the background aesthetic. They were designed to allow the Kremlin to release footage from any location, while maintaining the illusion that Putin was always in or near Moscow. By early 2025, scheduling patterns and airtime signatures pointed to Valdai as his primary base. Unlike Moscow, Valdai is hidden by dense tree cover. Unlike Sochi, it is not exposed to the sea or built on high visible terrain. And unlike both, Valdai can be sealed off without attracting public attention. According to one investigation, the Valdai site is ringed by 14 air defense systems, a level of protection associated with high-value wartime command sites. This concentration of defenses revealed one thing clearly: Putin expected to be targeted, and he was preparing for it. To viewers of nightly broadcasts, none of this context was visible. Kremlin videos continued to claim they were filmed at the presidential residence. Putin sat at a long table or behind his familiar desk. He blamed NATO for new conspiracies. He met generals. He held security briefings. But the office inconsistencies kept piling up. Maintaining perfect continuity across multiple sets is difficult, and once a few details shifted, investigators realized they were looking not at a single workspace, but at a distributed set of near-identical rooms. This raises a deeper question. Why go to such lengths at all? The answer lies in image management within Russia's political system. Putin's image is built on the concept of an unshakable leader, present, decisive, unafraid. Being seen in Moscow reinforces the idea that he is central to national life. It suggests continuity, strength, and legitimacy. Abandoning the Kremlin, even for valid security reasons, would undermine that image. It would expose vulnerability. And in a system centered on the projection of strength, vulnerability is costly. Cloned offices offered a solution. Preserve the visual fiction. Wherever the principle actually is, the illusion could continue. The public would believe he remained in Moscow, and critics could not easily prove otherwise. While Putin relied on curated images, another storyline unfolded in Ukraine's open-air war on the Ukrainian side. Instead of posing for patriotic photo shoots, President Volodymyr Zelensky traveled repeatedly to frontline regions. He visited brigades in Zaporizhia, meeting soldiers stationed near Orikhiv, Stepanivka, Huliapole, and the Kamyanska direction. He listened to their needs and reviewed weak points. Zelensky described his mission plainly, stating, "The Russians want to do everything to make life unbearable for Ukrainians. We are doing everything to ensure protection for our state and all Ukrainians." He added, "I am grateful for the thorough information about the difficulties here in the Zaporizhia region. Tomorrow I will hold a staff meeting focused specifically on this region." In late 2025, Russia released 2026 calendars featuring curated images of Putin as a paternal figure. They conspicuously omitted images of the war. Instead, the calendars displayed staged outdoor scenes, paired with quotes like, "Russia's border doesn't end anywhere. I'm a dove, but with very powerful iron wings." And "I've done everything so that Russia is an independent and sovereign state that can take its own decisions." Putin's reply to a question about Boris Yeltsin's famous directive, "Take care of Russia," was also highlighted. "I've not only taken care of the country, we've stepped back from the abyss." At the same time, Zelensky's trench visits continued. Putin was fortifying a forest, and while Russia's messaging focused on symbolism, Ukraine was expanding its reach. The Flamingo strike on Tuapse illustrated this reach. Flamingo carries roughly a 1-ton warhead. Tuapse is critical for exporting oil through the Black Sea, and oil exports are critical for funding Russia's war. If Tuapse becomes unreliable, Russia bleeds revenue. That is why Ukraine hits it repeatedly. On November 2nd, Ukrainian drones struck Tuapse, causing a large explosion that halted exports. Russia halted exports. Repairs began. And days later, the Flamingo missile arrived, inflicting even deeper damage. The strike sent a clear message. Distance no longer guarantees safety. That same night, Ukraine targeted the Orsk oil refinery, a facility with a capacity exceeding 6 million tons, located roughly 900 miles, or about 1,500 kilometers from the front lines. Despite layered defenses, from anti-drone netting to conscripts stationed with anti-drone guns, the refinery was hit again. The following day, Russian officials announced the facility had suspended processing. They blamed equipment maintenance, a phrase increasingly used to obscure drone strikes. Observers often interpret maintenance announcements as post-strike cover. Another operation hit the Slavneft petrochemical plant, degrading inputs for drones and equipment. Damaging this site directly reduced Russia's ability to produce the tools needed for continued military operations. Meanwhile, domestic production surged. Officials say nearly half of the drones and cruise missiles are now domestically built. Western partners prepared multi-year funding backed by frozen Russian assets, echoing this confidence. One Western official argued that initial expectations of rapid Russian success were misplaced. Putin has underperformed. We thought he had the world's second army. It was supposed to be a 3-day operation, and more than 10 years later, he's still fighting in Donbass. All of this intersects a basic reality: morale. A common military adage holds morale outweighs mass roughly 3-1. In other words, belief and confidence matter more than sheer numbers. When one leader visits front lines and the other reinforces a forest retreat with 14 air defense systems, the contrast is not symbolic. It has measurable consequences. Facing pressure, Putin is seeking a battlefield gain that can be presented as momentum. Hence, the current focus is on the Chasiv Yar axis. He wants to seize any town, any position that can be presented as momentum. A capture could be spun as momentum to pressure for concessions in Donbass, and to pressure international actors into pushing Ukraine to concede parts of Donbass. But this strategy depends on convincing the world that Russia is advancing, and on convincing Russians that their leader is firmly in control. The Flamingo strike undercut both claims at once: infrastructure invulnerability and leader omnipresence. It showed that even the most shielded infrastructure is vulnerable, and it showed that the man who claims to stand at the center of Russian power has moved far from the Kremlin, relying on replicated rooms to maintain the illusion that nothing has changed. The deeper question now is not whether Ukraine can continue striking these facilities, it is how long Russia can maintain its political illusion as the physical reality erodes around it. Putin's bunker defenses suggest he expects more strikes. His cloned offices suggest he fears what public perception might become if his location is fully exposed. And the damage to ports, refineries, and industrial plants suggests Ukraine understands exactly where to apply pressure. The next phase hinges on whether the illusion of control can survive the growing visibility of his retreat. The Flamingo missile did more than destroy a port structure. It illuminated a truth the Kremlin worked hard to conceal. And the question now is simple. Will Putin eventually return to the Kremlin or disappear even deeper into the forests of Valdai?